Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nitya Ananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again, as we always note, so whatever little we are able to understand, whatever little we are able to discuss, it's only to the immense contributions and immense service of Srila Prabhupada with this life's greatest contributions, these great literatures, these great scriptures, with his translations and commentaries, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and many, many more. So before going into today's verse, we'll just very, very briefly see the history so far. So we saw how Dhruva was determined to acquire his kingdom greater than his grandfather. So he proceeds to Madhuvan, and then he meets Narada. Narada gives him advice and guidance, and then he tells him how for any desires, whatever desires, we approach only the Lord, nobody else. And then he advises him the suitable place for sadhana. So basically, he's advising him the process for Ashtanga Yoga. So the suitable place and the steps what he needs to follow in his practice. And if he has to meditate, we are not meditating on the impersonal, anything impersonal, meditating on the Lord's beautiful form. So he describes the Lord's most beautiful form to Dhruva. And then he teaches him the 12-syllable mantra. He initiates him into the mantra so that he can begin his process of Ashtanga Yoga. And then he teaches him how to worship the deity. So while getting him to Ashtanga Yoga, he also kind of plays a transcendental trick on him by getting him to worship the deity as well. And then controlling the senses and the Lord's reciprocation. He advises how the Lord will reciprocate whatever desires we may have. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The Lord reciprocates. And then Narada visits Uttanapad to reassure him that his son is actually, he's got a very bright future ahead of him, and he is most glorious because of his dedication to Lord Krishna. And then we see a description of Dhruva's austerities, where how he controlled his eating, even though at such an young age, he controlled his eating, controlled drinking, controlled his breathing as well, and fixed his mind on the Lord. So basically, they have described his progress to the stages of Ashtanga Yoga, starting from Yama, where he controls, Niyama follows the rules and regulations, Asana, the place of sitting, Pranayama, controlled breathing, Dharana, Dhyana on the Supreme Lord, and up to the Samadhi stage. So we start with today's verse now, where he actually encounters and captures the Supreme Absolute Truth. So before that, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vishnava Madhav Swami Namine Guru Gauram Giri Sheshtam Yo Vishnu Bhena Sevate Madhavam Tulasi Rama Krishna Kirtim Namaste. So everyone able to see the verse? Adharam mahad adinam Pradhana Purusheshwaram Brahmadharayamanasya Trayo Lokas Chakampire. So this Canto 4, chapter 8, verse 78. Nandavraj Prabhu, can you kindly read the word to word translations for this verse?
Sure.
Yeah.
Adaram repose, Mahat Adinam. We have to, of the material sum total is the Mahat. Sorry. It's a Mahat, is the Mahat Tattva. Pradhana, the chief. Purusha, Purusheshwara, Ishwaram, master of all living entities. Brahma, the supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead. Dharya Manasya, having taken into the heart. Trayaha, the three planetary system. Loka, all the planets. Chakampare, began to tremble.
So basically, yeah, before that, let's read the translation also. Yeah, thank you. Abhash Prabhu, can you kindly read the translation?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. And Nalinikant Prabhu, can you kindly read the verse purport for benefit?
Nalini, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Nalini.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, so
all and I can read.
Yeah, please.
In this verse, the particular purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this verse, the particular word Brahma is very significant. Brahman refers to one who not only is the greatest, but has the potency to expand to an unlimited extent. How was it possible for Dhruv Maharaj to capture Brahman within his heart? This question has been very nicely answered by Jiva Goswami. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman, for since he comprises everything, material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the Supreme Godhead says, I am the resting place of Brahman. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all-expanding substance. But according to this verse, other Vedic literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is the sun globe. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore says that since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all three worlds and in the spiritual world.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. So again, a wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada, where he has described the Supreme Brahman and the emanation from the Brahman and how Dhruva captures it. So we remember in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, second chapter, they have described the three aspects of the absolute truth. Yeah, very famous verse. Ramaniya Mataji, can you kindly read this verse? Or Sachimata Mataji? Or Sita Nandini Mataji?
Hold on, Prabhu, sorry.
Yeah.
I read it, is it?
Yeah.
Vadanti tattatva vidas tatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramat meti bhagavan iti sabjayati.
Very good. Thank you so much. Can you read the translation? Yeah.
Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth, all this non-dual substance, Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan.
So the absolute truth, very nicely in the Bhagavatam, they have described the three aspects of it: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So what is this Brahman? So Brahman, the Lord himself describes in the Bhagavad Gita, in 2 verses he describes this Brahman, and of course in many other Upanishads also it's described. And this Tushta Chaitanya Prabhu, can you read this verse which describes the Brahman?
Geyam yattat prakshami.
Yeah.
Yajganatmanam asnute anadimat param brahma natattam nasha puchate. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And this Nandavash Prabhu, can you read the translation?
So, thank you. I shall now explain the knowledge, the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal Brahman. Eternal Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world.
So basically, the Lord is explaining here that Brahman is in which everything is situated. So whatever we see around us is situated only in Brahman. There is nothing that exists but the Brahman. Everything else the Lord manifests, but it stays for some time and it disappears. But this Brahman is eternal. It never changes. It's like a platform in which everything exists. And similarly, even in this verse, he describes this again. Abhash Prabhu, can you read this verse?
Mama Junir Mahad Brahma Tashmin Garbham Dadamyaham Shambhavo Shabhavootanam Tato Bhavoti Bharata.
Thank you. The translation, yeah.
Total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is the Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharat.
So again, the Lord has made it very clear here. So whatever we see around us, its origin is in the Brahman. Later we'll see what is beyond the Brahman. But he is saying everything originates from the Brahman. And very nicely in the Bhagavatam, it is described how the Brahman is the origin, and from there the most subtle form of matter is Pradhana. Because in this we see this verse, Pradhana Purusheshwaram. Pradhana. And Pradhana is saying the Brahman which is infused with the Sattva Guna, which is infused with the mode of goodness, that is Saguna Brahman, that is called Pradhana. The subtlest form of matter. In this verse we see this. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yattat Trigunam Avyaktam Nityam Sad Asad Atmakam Pradhanam Prakritim Prahur Avishesham Visheshavat. Can you read the translation? No? Yeah.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state, and it's called Pradhana. It is called Prakriti when in the manifested state of existence.
So still, it has not yet transformed into Prakriti. It is in an unmanifest state. So even modern science, they say that there was a primordial soup when it was all no elements, nothing was there. It was just all these particles, different particles were there. So it matches with that. And next, this Mahat Tattva is formed when this Pradhana is agitated by the time factor. Because everything, because of time, it gets agitated. And then what happens? We see that again very nicely described in the Bhagavatam. Daivat Shubhita Dharminyam Swasyam Yono Para Puman Adattha Viryam Sha Sasutha Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam. Nimai Pandit Prabhu, can you read the translation? Nimai Pandit Prabhu or Joshna Mataji? Can you read the translation? Or Sita Nandini Mataji?
Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with his internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned souls.
Conditions.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So the Lord in the form of time, he impregnates the pradhana with all the living entities, So then it gets converted, because that is the source of creation, because just matter cannot manifest anything. Matter is dead matter, dull matter. So when he injects the living entities which are conscious, only then the creation actually starts, the Mahat Tattva, when it's agitated by time. And then from Mahat Tattva, we see how the Prakriti evolves, the nature. Yeah. Uma can read the translation.
Mahatastu vikurvanat raja satvopa brindatat brahma pradhanas prabhavad dravya jnana kriyatmakaha.
Yeah.
Material activities are caused by the Mahatattva's being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities of material knowledge come into play.
So again, Mahat Tattva, what causes the Mahat Tattva to manifest into Prakriti? Mainly because of the Ahankara, the false ego of the living entities, where they consider themselves part of matter, and then all the things start manifesting. Very nicely described in the Bhagavatam, how from the subtle elements, the gross elements are manifested. That is, all the 25 elements manifest. That is, starting from ether, then air, then fire, then water, then earth, then all the corresponding sense objects, then all the knowledge gathering senses, then all the action senses, then all these things manifest, the 25 items, and then creation proceeds. And this verse in Bhagavatam, very nicely, it summarizes all these three steps very nicely. Yosau gunakshobha krito vikara pradhana mulan mahata prasuta aham trivrin moha vikalpa hetur vaikarikastamasa aindriyascha. Nalika Mataji, sorry, I had put Radha Padma Mataji. Can you kindly read the translation?
Yeah, no worries, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
When the three modes of nature are agitated, the resultant transformation appears as the element false ego in three phases: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Generated from Mahat Tattva, which is itself produced from the unmanifest Pradhan, this false ego becomes the cause of all material illusion and duality.
So you can see very nicely it is said how this false ego can be in any of these modes, goodness, passion, or ignorance, or a mixture of these modes. That's why there are so many different types of living entities. And this false ego becomes the cause of all material creation. So we saw how from Brahman, then we have Pradhana, which is Brahman infused in the mode of goodness, Pradhana, then Pradhana infused in the mode of passion, then Mahat Tattva, and from Mahat Tattva infused in the mode of ignorance, then all the elements, everything is so nicely created, so nicely scientifically the process is described. And the 8 elements of Prakriti, the Lord very nicely, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 8 elements. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtada. Nandavraj Prabhu, can you read this translation?
Yes. Earth, water, fire, air is a mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Thank you.
So the 8 elements of matter. We saw that 8 elements of Prakriti. And there's also something more. This is also, apart from that, they're saying there's something else. What is this? Jagat. Yes. Yeah.
Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature.
So is the living entities and this all contributes, what constitutes creation? All this dull matter, all these 8 elements, and apart from that, the conscious living entities. Again, we see this word dharayate. We even in this word we say dhare. In Dhruva, he carries that thing within his heart. So here we see dharayate, exploiting. Actually, exploiting is a euphemism. No, actually, the nature is playing around with us. We are not playing around with nature. So dharayam, we are actually carrying this huge burden of nature on us. So the conscious living entities. So we see this process of creation so nicely described in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, the supreme absolute truth. But there's something more. The material scientist knowledge stops until that, whatever we have seen now. They will say, yes, this is perfect understanding. But beyond that, the knowledge is blocked. But then we see in the scriptures how this entire Brahman rests on the Lord. It is not independent. It is not independent. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya yasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya ekantikasya cha. Sitanandini Mataji, can you read the translation?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness.
So the Lord reveals here that the Brahman is there. Everything originates from the Brahman, but he is the source. He is the basis of the impersonal Brahman. And Brahman is an aspect of the Lord. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is described. These 3 verses are very famous. When the Lord reveals in the 9th chapter, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani nyachaham tesha avasthitaha. The 9th chapter. Tushta Chaitanya Prabhu, can you read this translation? Yeah. Or can you read?
I'll read, Prabhu.
Yeah, please.
By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them.
I am not in them. So the Lord says this unmanifested form is just an aspect of him, where all beings are him, but he is not in them. Yeah, can you read the next one?
Nachamasthani bhutani paschame yogam aishwaram bhuta bhimna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha.
Yeah.
And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself, the very source of creation.
See how the Lord is, everything is fully dependent on the Lord, but the Lord is still fully independent. Everything, nothing, there's nothing that exists but Brahman and nothing that exists but Krishna. This, because Brahman is a manifestation of Krishna, everything exists only within Krishna, but Krishna is still saying that he's fully separate from it. Yeah. And he gives a very beautiful example as well. Radha Padma Mataji, can you read this shloka where the Lord gives an example how everything is situated in him, but still he is separate. Yeah.
Prabhu.
Yeah. Nalinikan.
Yathakashas. That's what I need to read, Prabhu?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yathakasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matstaniti upadharaya.
Thank you, Prabhu. The translation.
Supreme absolute truth.
Yeah.
The Brahman rests on the Lord. Bhagavad Gita 14.27.
Which one?
Brahman.
No. The translation of that. The translation. Understand as the mighty wind. Are you seeing that? Can you read, Uma?
Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in him.
Rest in him. So in his form of the Brahman, everything rests in him. Not personally on the Lord. But Lord is personally, he is enjoying. But on his aspect as a Brahman, everything rests. And same thing in the Brahma Samhita also he emphasizes. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda koti shvashesha vasudhadi vibhuti bhinnam tad brahma nishkalam anantam ashesha bhutam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Abhash Prabhu, can you read this translation?
Sure.
What does Lord Brahma say? Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Translation: I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of non-differentiated Brahman, mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the invisible, indivisible, infinite, limitless truth.
So Lord Brahma reveals here what is the source of the Brahman itself. It's but nothing but the effulgence of the Lord. Brahman is pure goodness. To Brahman there is no contamination at all. Brahman is pure. When Brahman is contaminated with the material goodness, then that transforms into Pradhana. And the first word itself in this shloka is Adharam. Adharam is the foundation. He is the foundation. No? We have the Aadhar card, no, in India, which is a foundation card. Everything else determined on based on that. Yeah. Can you read?
Gatir bharta prabhu sakshi vivasah sharanam suhrit prabhava pralaya sthanam nidhanam bijam avyayam.
The translation. Yeah.
I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed.
So if we depend purely on material science to give us knowledge about this universe, we won't get this information. No, our information stops with the impersonal aspect, that everything starts from unmanifested matter. But here we see that how the Lord reveals that he is actually the basis of everything. He is the eternal seed from everything comes. The master of the Pradhana and the Purushas, both the Pradhanas and the Purushas, he is the master. This Pradhana, Purusheshwara, this phrase I found several times in the Bhagavatam, several verses, it is same verses mentioned. When something is very important, it is mentioned many times. Pradhana and Purusheshwara. Actually, we are all Prakriti. No, we are not Purusha. We are all Prakriti. But even if we have the misconception that we are all Purushas, we are enjoyers, but the Lord very nicely says that he is Purusha Ishvara. If you think that you are enjoyer, I am the Lord of all the enjoyers. Yesha vai Bhagavan Sakshat Pradhana Purusheshwaraha Yogeshwarer Vimighnyanghir Loko Yam Manyate Naram. Yeah.
The Supreme.
Yeah.
Can
Please,
I read,
please.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the master of all other living entities and of the material nature. His lotus feet are sought and worshipped by great saintly persons like Vyasa. Nonetheless, they are fools who consider Lord Krishna an ordinary human being.
Ordinary. Same thing in this verse also it is said. Kalenatmanubhavena samyam nitasu shaktisu sattva dishva adi purusha pradhana purusheshwaraha paravaranam parama aste kaivalya samyitaha kevalanubhava ananda sandoho nirupadikaha. The translation.
Who I read?
Prabhu?
Yeah. Please.
When the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays his own potency in the form of time and guides his material potencies, such as the mode of goodness, into a neutral condition of equilibrium, he remains as the supreme controller of that neutral state called Prabhadana, as well as of the living entities. He is also the supreme worshipable object for all beings, including liberated souls, demigods, and ordinary conditioned souls. The Lord is eternal, eternally free from any material designations, and he constitutes the total of spiritual bliss, which one experiences by seeing the Lord's spiritual form. The Lord thus exhibits the fullest meaning of the word. Sorry, I can't see the bottom.
Liberation.
Liberation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So here he says how the Lord, even though he infuses this Brahman with the quality of material goodness and then all the creation proceeds, but he himself remains completely uncontaminated. He remains as a controller. He remains as an enjoyer. He is not contaminated. So that's where the impersonalist philosophy, they have the misconception. The Lord gets contaminated by the mode of goodness, and then all this creation proceeds. No, the Lord doesn't get contaminated. He remains as a supreme controller. And same thing in the Shvetashvastra Upanishad also is said. Patir Gunesha and Pradhana, he is also the controller of the Pradhana. It is the Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport. This was also. Yeah, can you just.
Nanyatra Bhagavataha Pradhana Purusheshwarat Atmanah Sarvabhutanam Bhayam Tivram Nivartate. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. For I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls.
So that's again Lord Kapila saying this in the third canto. So again he's saying Pradhana Purusheshwara. He is the Lord of Pradhana. He is the Lord of all the Purushas. And he's saying if any fear what we have in this material world can be driven away only when we take the shelter of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord is present within everything and within everyone. He is present as a Brahman. Everything is present within the Lord. At the same time, he is present in a minute form in everything. We'll just see one or two verses because of a shortage of time. We'll just see one or two verses. Yeah. Radha Padma Mataji, can you read this translation or Nalnikant Prabhu? Or the verse, sorry. Yeah.
Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarvabhutashaya Sthitaha Aham Adischa Madhyamscha Bhutanam Anta Evacha.
Thank you, Mataji. So nicely you chanted that. Yeah. The translation as well.
I am the super soul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Thank you, Prabhu.
So it is so inconceivable, no? Achintya, as Lord Chaitanya says. Everything is present in the Lord and he is present in everything. He is present in everything. That is possible only for the Lord. And this verse as well. Sita Nandini Mataji. Sita, can you kindly read this verse?
Yes, Prabhu. Atha bhābuhu naitena kim gnatena tavarjuna vista bhayam idam kritsnam ekam sena sthito jagat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, sir. Translation as well, Mataji.
But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe.
Yes. So we can read all the details, but the Lord says, what need is there of the detailed knowledge? He just with a minute fragment of himself, he is pervading the entire universe, and within that single fragment, everything is situated. He doesn't need his full capability to support the universe. And because he is supporting billions of universes. Yeah, this was can you?
एकोऽप्यसौ रचयितुं जगदण्डकोटिं यच्छक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डचयायदन्तः अण्डान्तरस्थपरमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
Because the potency is the Brahman, and from which everything originates. And the possessor, who is the possessor of the Brahman? The Supreme Lord. And there's no distinction, really, there's no distinction between the two. Because in his potency, he is present in all his fullness. He is present in all his fullness. But why can't we see? Even though the Lord very clearly says that he is present in everything. Can you comment? Why can't we see? Even though he very clearly says it's present.
Yeah, inconceivable.
Yeah, this was explained. Yeah. Nandavraj Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Can you read this verse? Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Mata parantapananyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mayi sarvam idam proktam sutre mani ganaj eva. Translation.
Translation. Yeah.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread.
So we can never see the thread on which the pearls are strung. But everything depends on the thread only. The thread is cut, all your beautiful necklace, everything goes for a toss. There is no more beauty. Everything just falls apart. Even though he is not seen at all. I mean, because of our own immersion in this prakriti, we are not able, even though we are conscious, we are not able to see this. Can you read this verse?
Satyam pratistham te jagat ahu anishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kim anyat kama harpitam. They say that the world is unreal with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sick desire and has no cause other than lust.
So this is where our scientific knowledge ends, no? Because we don't recognize the person above the entire thing. We say, oh, it has just happened by chance. This unmanifested nature has manifested by chance, and it's just sex desire. The living organisms, they come together and then they produce more, and that's how everything is produced. There's nobody in control. So here, this how to come above this, all this Dhruva has actually come above this thing, because he has attained the Samadhi. He has attained the Samadhi. When he has attained the Samadhi, then he has attained the perfection of yoga. And because of that, he has been able to capture the Supreme Lord within the heart. He has gone beyond the material yogic siddhis, like becoming the smallest or becoming the heaviest, becoming the largest. He has gone above all these yogic siddhis. Because initially that's what he wanted to attain, right? Yogic siddhis. He wanted to attain the biggest kingdom. But he has gone beyond this because of the instruction of his spiritual master. So how has he captured? Because Prabhupada has translated that. He has captured the Supreme Lord within his heart. So even in physics, we have the concept of resonance. So even a very small object, it is vibrating at the natural frequency of a very big object. What happens? It actually gets the energy of the big object, because it is vibrating at the frequency of that larger object. It is said that even a small car, for some bridges, if the car is going on that and it is vibrating at the same frequency, the bridge itself can fall. Bridge itself can collapse because of just a little car going on the bridge. The physicists say there's a concept of resonance. So similarly, Prabhupada uses this word of dovetailing. So when we resonate with the Lord's natural frequency, we resonate with the Lord's energy, then actually we acquire the Lord's energy. The Lord's energy manifests in us when we vibrate in the same frequency as the Lord. When we are in tune with it. So that's why this explains this great servants of the Lord who manifest the Lord's energy, it's because they are in sync with the Lord, in sync with the Lord. For example, the Prabhupada was asked, how did you do this great miracle of this dancing white elephants? Then because he was in sync with the Lord, even at such an advanced age, he was able to achieve that. So Prabhupada finally culminates that this is the culmination of yoga. When who is the topmost yogi? Yeah. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi, jnanibhyopi mato adhika, karmibhyascha adhiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Abhash Prabhu, can you read this translation?
Prabhuji, thank you. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the intelligent, and greater than the fruity worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi.
Yogi. The yogi we have seen when we are yoked. The yoke also, the word comes from yogi. When we are yoked to the Lord, then we actually derive the benefit of his energy. So the Lord says, he gives him, say, when you yoke yourself to me, then you automatically get my power and my energy. And then he says, among these yogis also, who is the topmost person who has is in synchronicity with the Lord. Can you read this?
Yoginam api sarvesham matkatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
So Lord concludes like this. Prabhupada also concludes like this in this purport. So when we are in full synchronicity with the Lord, when we are rendering transcendental loving service, we are most closely united with him, and then we are able to actually really capture the Lord, physically capture the Lord within ourselves, as Dhruva has done, and manifest his energy. So it's not surprising that here he's saying the three worlds are beginning to shake when Dhruva captures all this energy. So this is how Prabhupada so nicely he concludes this purport. So yeah, so that's where I just wanted to conclude, Prabhu, with the Prabhupada's conclusion on that. So if there's any comments or anything anybody wants to add, otherwise that's where I want to conclude.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. Just a comment like how I was, when I could relate to the science.
Yeah.
When we read in the books, like when we take an example of medical science,
yeah.
that we say, oh, such and such positive emotional proteins are there in the brain, and then there are so many hormones, and those hormones go and attach to such and such by key and lock mechanism attached to certain receptor. They bring about some action potential in those neurons, and then those emotions can be produced positive or negative. So, and there are several chemistry examples and scientific example, and we never see them. But then they say, oh, scientist has seen that in the microscope, then electron microscope.
Correct.
And then we believe them.
We believe them. Yes. Yes.
And similarly in Shastra, the theory is already written since time immemorial. At least the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita was again re-established 5,000 years ago. And so that means scientists are those sages. And,
Correct.
Yeah, and they've been blessed by the Lord, empowered by the Lord. Like everything is there. So, but often people ask questions: do you have a proof? Do you have a proof? So we have a scientific proof. Like it's like a catalyst reaction of a creation, one after the other, and say they're like scientists and everything is there.
Correct. It's not sectarian. We're not talking anything sectarian. Huh? This is basically accepting the experts. No? Yes, when you go to the hospital, just as you very nicely said, we accept the opinion of an expert doctor, expert surgeon. So here we have the expert spiritual acharyas, so who have actually experienced this. So it very simply accepting the expert opinion. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah.
It is just like you have given very good outline. Even it's just like a focal point of this magnifying glass.
Yeah.
All the rays of the sun is concentrated to one point,
Yeah.
and it keeps burning. So all the resources have been collected so nicely, and you elaborated everything in a very systematic way. So there is no scope of asking any question.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's kind of you.
Every question is answered from all sections of the society. There is no scope that anybody can argue on this point. So nicely briefed. Prabhuji, my one request, would you please circulate this piece of information,
yeah,
so that we can get the benefit out of it.
No problem.
If you have a recording, please share with us.
No problem. Yeah, I can share this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful combination of all sections of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Samhita. It's very good combination.
No, it's just Prabhupada has already done it. We are just repeating. That's all.
You have extracted all the points, related points, so that no argument arises. Thank you so much.
Kind of you, Prabhu. No problem. I can share that. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a very nice class. These classes are already being broadcast on Temple Facebook and also on YouTube. So I'll put a link on so people can follow. All the classes are being recorded, so anybody can follow anytime. Okay. Prabhu, one just clarification. So when Dhruva Maharaj stopped breathing, the whole universe seemed to be choked up. And so demigod went to the Lord. So is this breathing process still universal? I mean, how should you understand that? Because materially we see the breathing is like related to the material world, this earthly planet. But is this like universe, it all goes on throughout the universe?
I think, okay, I'm not an expert in what they have described there, but what they've described is basically he has captured the Supreme Lord in his heart. So when he's captured the Supreme Lord in his heart, basically he is able to influence the entire universe, because the Supreme Lord controls everything in the universe. Without the Supreme Lord's sanction, not even a blade of grass moves. But here we see Dhruva, because of being in sync with the Lord, he has captured the Lord himself in his heart. Yes, when he has captured the Supreme Brahman in his heart, automatically he is controlling everything in the universe. He has become like the controller of the universe, because he is captured him in his heart. And because of that, when he stops breathing, automatically it is described that the others also, their breathing is affected. The breathing is affected. Because of capturing this energy of the Lord within himself. Yeah, that's how I understood. But yeah, if somebody else can comment on it. Yeah.
Anybody else got any clarification, reflections, realization to share? Still got a few minutes. Doesn't seem to be true. So I'd like to, on behalf of all the present here, we'd like to thank you very much for a wonderful class. You went like a whirlwind tour of creation, like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. You gave the whole summary of the creation. Thank you. With so much authority, so many references, just amazing. Nice. Like His Grace, Poshak Madhav Prabhu ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. God Bhakti, Vanchika Padruvecha,
Ananta Koti, Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
God Bhakti, God
Ki jai.